There is no end run around Golgotha. And anyone or anything else who tells you otherwise is preaching modern day heresy.
Welcome to the La Casa de Cristo Sermoncast. We invite you to check out our website, lacasadecristo.com, for everything going on at the church. Also, follow us on social media under the username La Casa Family. Now, let's get into the sermon.
We've had many exciting and festival weekends here at La Casa de Cristo. It began several weeks ago with Confirmation Weekend with our young people leading worship, and then last weekend as we celebrated our Christian Lutheran heritage with Reformation Weekend. Today, of course, we come celebrating All Saints, and next weekend will be a special weekend in our life as well, as you will have the opportunity to hear from your pastors and also some of your lay leaders about the next steps for La Casa de Cristo as we move forward from our next 50 years in terms of our 50th anniversary. So next weekend's very special as well. Come to hear more about what's planned for 2026 and beyond. But I want to go back a few weeks to Confirmation Weekend. All of our youth, as they always do, did a great job. And one of the young people, Sam, shared in his message that he's a runner in track and field, and he used that analogy in terms of the spiritual race of life. I had already picked out this verse from Hebrews for this Sunday, and I wanted to tag team upon what Sam said, because 1 Timothy chapter 4 tells us this: do not neglect the words of our young people. Do not ignore our young people. Pay attention to them. And so I want to piggyback off what he said and ask the question today: is your spiritual life a sprint, a marathon, or a relay? Is it a sprint, a marathon, or a relay? We come celebrating all of our saints today, and of course you have the opportunity to tie a ribbon out on the wreaths in the courtyard after the service in honor of your loved one. Also, we have a special noon service in the garden today to celebrate as well, 5 services this weekend. But as we come, my question to you is, are we shrewdly investing in our spiritual life as shrewdly as we invest in other things in our life? Maybe we're a person that looks for bargains and looks for sales. Maybe we're shrewd in terms of business or finance. But do we invest as much energy in our spiritual life as we do with that? I've always loved the cute story that showed what a savvy businesswoman this lady was. It was a true story, not really a joke, but just an observation on how much she was paying attention to money. She had bought a Mercedes-Benz, but she lived in New York City, and she was worried about the cost of parking this Mercedes-Benz because it costs about $6,000 a month. So she went down to her local bank one day and said, I want to borrow a $10,000 loan, and I'm taking a trip to Europe. And the bank manager said, well, ma'am, I'm not sure we can do that. We don't usually give loans for vacations, but let me do some checking and see. So he went back and talked to the big manager, and the manager said, well, ma'am, we can do that, but you have to provide collateral. And she said, well, I have this brand new Mercedes that's worth way more than $10,000. Why don't I give that to you? You park it for the month, and then, I'll take care of that way. You see where this is going. So at the end of it, she came back. Now, they charged her 10% interest, right? So she came back, she paid them the $10,000, and she paid them the $1,000 in interest. But in the meantime, they hadn't done their homework, and they said, ma'am, why did you take this loan out for this vacation? You have over $1 million in your account. She said, you know why. She said, you parked my car for a month, and I saved $5,000. Very shrewd on her part as well. What about you in your spiritual life? How shrewd are you? Many times this passage and other passages in which Paul talks about running are used as a metaphor for a race for our spiritual life. And I'd like to make the suggestion this morning that a couple things can be true at once. Rather than looking at these as one of only 3 options, that your life is a sprint, a marathon, or a relay, I'd like to suggest that we all experience all 3 of these at one time or another in our life. Many times when we're excited in our faith is like a sprint. We want to learn more. We want to grow more. maybe we're part of a small group or a Bible study or do our daily devotions or read our Bibles. And so it's that all-out sprint that we're hungry to learn more about life and faith. But like any sprint, sometimes that is short-lived. And so over a period of time, we begin to fade a bit in the race. We can't sustain that breakneck speed. And so we drop out of the group, or maybe our daily devotions go by the wayside, or our church attendance becomes more infrequent. And so the sprint is not sustainable for the long term. And then, of course, the marathon is used as well to describe this 12th chapter of Hebrews. But the problem with a marathon is this. A marathon is a long race, and people have to train for it. But even when they train, they hit the wall. Even when they train, they get cramps. And the problem with the marathon is it's all reliant upon you. And so the reality is, over time, we do grow weary. Over time, we encounter things in life. Setbacks, tragedies, problems at home, problems at work, problems in school, problems with our health. And we're trying to do it all ourselves until finally we hit that wall. So this morning I'd like to suggest that the race of faith in your life and mine is much more like a relay race. You know that race where they have a team and the baton gets passed from one runner to another. And maybe you received the baton of faith in your life from parents or grandparents, or maybe it wasn't a family member at all. Maybe it was someone who invited you into church or into life or into faith, and you received that baton of faith, and now you're running that race of faith. But you know, you also have to look at various times to pass off that baton to others, to share the love of Jesus with others who don't know it, as our mission statement states, to love those that don't know Jesus Christ. And we also have to pass that baton off to the next generation, to understand that as we run our race, that race will sooner or later end, and we will join the saints in heaven. And so that baton gets passed. And you know what? Somewhere along the way, here's what we realize: that baton will get dropped. In the 2024 U.S. Olympics, in the men's championship race, the baton got dropped. And you will drop the baton at one point or another, because we are imperfect and sinful people. And maybe you don't drop the baton, but you pass it off to someone else and they drop it. And you're disappointed because they haven't carried that baton of faith as you expected them to. But what God calls us to is faithfulness, to love, to never ceasing prayer, and in that we all run this relay race of life. So you see, we have our coach named Jesus, and our coach is there, and we're running this relay race. And along the way, we're going to encounter obstacles, but we also have this team that surrounds us. We have our relay team, and some of those are those that we mentioned today that you heard and saw, the saints in this family that have gone home to be with Jesus in this past year. And others are still part of the church militant. Those of us here on earth working side by side, shoulder by shoulder, to bring God's kingdom of love and peace to this earth. But you see, the key to all of this, as it always is people only focus on verse 1 of Hebrews about running the race. And we want to make it, as we do about most things, all about us. But that's why verses 2 and 3 are so important here. Fix your eyes upon Jesus Christ, the coach, the pioneer, the author, the perfecter of our faith. He set aside his own joy, his own life, and endured the shame of the cross. And so it is in him that we can run the race. It is him. We do not grow weary. We do not grow faint, because our strength is not in ourselves. When we want to quit the race, when we hit the wall, when we get cramps, it's there and then that he gives us the strength to go on. True story, a wealthy, very wealthy software developer, probably a billionaire, if not a multimillionaire, had 5 homes all around the world, became interested in the Christian faith. And he was struggling to learn and know it. He had everything in the world at his disposal. You know, he had a fleet of private jets. He could do anything that he wanted to, but he knew that somehow all that wasn't enough. So one night he went to bed and he had this dream, and in the dream he died and he approached the gates of heaven. And there at the gates of heaven, there were giant scales. And as he faced the gates of heaven, there were scales on the left that were metal and scales on the right that were metal. And the scales on the left were attended to by Satan and his minions. And all of the bad things that the man had done in his life were being piled upon that scale, so that all the bad was being weighed towards one side, the side of eternal separation from God. But then Jesus and his angels were on the right side. They were on that other side of the scales, and they were piling on all the good things that he had done till it balanced out. The man began to toss and turn and sweat in his dream because all of a sudden things took a turn for the worse. Satan yelled to him, no matter how much you've done, no matter how much good you've done in your life, you are still a sinner. And the scales began to tip once again to the left, towards eternal separation from God. But in his dream, the man heard three sounds. First, it was the sound of one piece of metal falling onto the scales on the right. Clink, one nail. A second nail, clink. A third nail, clink. And Jesus said, it was never about you to begin with, but about what I have done for you. The two nails in his wrists, the one in his feet. And the man woke up and became a believer in Jesus Christ. You see, no matter what kind of race you're running, no matter how tired you are, he is there for you. And I can tell you this most assuredly this morning on this All Saints Sunday. I can tell you this: there is no end run around the cross and the empty tomb. No matter how many relays, sprints, or marathons you've run, there is no end run around Golgotha. And anyone or anything else who tells you otherwise is preaching modern day heresy. It is through the cross, it is through the empty tomb that we run the race of life. This is not our own doing. It is a free gift of God, and it is Him who gives us the strength and energy to go on. As you run that relay, you will drop your baton, and someone else in your family or amongst your friends will drop their baton too. But it is by His grace that we are saved. So fix your eyes upon Jesus Christ, the author and pioneer, the perfecter of our faith. He is our coach, and we stand on the shoulders of all those who have gone before us, a great cloud of witnesses, and we give thanks. Amen.